Entering the Mayo Experience.
Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, presented by DraftKings 2022 PGA Golf One and Done strategy and tips for the upcoming season. Now, if you were watching this before the start of the Sony Open, good news. You can still play in the gigantic race for the Mayo Cup. $50,000 to first place, $500,000 guaranteed. Gigantic one and done against me, all the viewers, everyone out there. As long as you're in North America, you are good to go. Hit the description. You can find the link, or just go to fantasygolfchampionships.com and go and register. There are myriad contests up there. There are private leagues you can set up for yourself. And if you missed the date by the Sony Open, don't worry. There's a major season one and done. There's always new tournaments popping up for the remainder of the season. So go to fantasygolfchampionships.com and get yourself in it right now and try to deploy these tips, because I always say that I'm going to do this. I make note that I'm going to do it. And then after like 3 weeks when I'm not winning, I completely get away from my strategy and end up in like last place, because there's nothing better you can do than watch a video of a guy who has never won one of these things. Now, when you're playing against like 4,000 other people, chances are you're not going to win. But there are a few things you can do to really get yourself ahead of the pack. And one of them, right off the hop, is just knowing what one and done is. You don't know what one and done is? Here it is. You get to pick one golfer per event for the length of your contest. Once you use said golfer, you cannot use that golfer again. You get the earnings that golfer has for the tournament. So a lot of people say like, oh, I need my guys to make the cut every single week. You don't. You can have a guy miss the cut, 3 of every 4 weeks, as long as you hit winners. Hitting winners is essentially the key tip. Now, if I was better at hitting winners, I wouldn't be doing videos. I wouldn't be doing content. I would move to Vegas and just bet golf winners at 80-1 every single week if I knew who was going to win. But there are certain things that you can do to really narrow down the field for yourself. So let's talk about this in the context of a large field, let's say over 2,000, 4,000 people, person one and done, and for big money that lasts around 30 events throughout the course of the year. So ours big one runs from the Sony Open through the BMW Championship. That is 31 events that are qualified for our contest. So that leads you to the tip number 1. Use the good players in your one and done. You have 31 opportunities to make a pick. Why are you using, let's say, who's someone who's popular? Charlie Hoffman. Maybe you do want to use Charlie Hoffman at one point, but consider that he is the 76th ranked player in the world, where if you just used everyone currently inside the top 31, as I do this video, Joaquin Niemann would be the worst player that you would use throughout the course of the year. So don't worry about using up your studs or where to deploy them. If they're playing and you think that they're going to win, you should probably use them, because whoever hits like 8 or 9 winners throughout the course of the year is probably going to win. There is no difference really between a miscut and a T51, a T32, a T17. Frankly, if your guys don't finish in the top 3 of a tournament, it's not really moving the needle all that much once you look at the pay structure of a lot of these tournaments. That the guy who comes in 5th, yeah, that's going to help you. Not significantly. Like, it would almost take, like, just looking at the breakdown of some of these tournaments, that a guy coming in 5th equals about, what, you would need to have, 8 5th place finishes to equal 1 winner? Something along those lines. So you need to get your top 3s in there. That's how you're going to make significant moves up the standings. And don't sweat it if your guys miss the cut. I mean, that sucks. Obviously, you want to have the winner, but there's no real benefit of having your guy come T11, tied for 11th every single week. You're not going to win anything. You might not even cash if that's the problem. You need to pile up winners along the way. And frankly, the best way to do it is to pile up winners that no one else has. So the main tip I can have for you, and the best strategy that I've seen deployed throughout the course of any season, is come up with the guys that have a realistic chance of actually winning this tournament. Who is that? Maybe it's the top 10 in odds. Maybe it's the top 5 in odds. Obviously, those guys from that group don't win every single week, but they win close to the majority of the weeks on the PGA Tour. So at least you've narrowed down your field and put yourself in the best chance to get lucky. Seize the opportunity of this moment. I like to do things like go to fantasynational.com and look at the event simulator and just look at the actual win equity that the simulator gives each of these players. Maybe you can find someone from outside of that top 10 in terms of the betting odds who actually the model gives top 10 probability to win this week. That's sometimes a really good route to go down to. But I usually like to take the top 5 to 10 players in the field and try to find the one player who is not being really talked about this week. And there's different circumstances for this, because sometimes a guy's betting odds, like let's take the Tournament of Champions, for example, which was not included in the one and done. Like no one really wanted John Rahm, just because the price was prohibitive. Like you could have Colin Morikawa for double the odds. You could have Bryson for more than double. Sam Burns for triple the odds. Sung J M for quadruple the odds based on how big of a favorite John Rahm was. And maybe you want to keep John Rahm for the US Open or a more major event. That is one thing to plan out. I wouldn't try to plan out every event on the schedule because A, you don't know who's going to play at each of these tournaments. You don't know when Brooks Koepka is going to hurt himself for the event that you were saving him for. And you're like, well, now I don't want to use him. So you might as well use the guys while they're healthy. But if you wanted to plan out the players, the Masters, the PGA Championship, the Open Championship, and the US Open, and have your like 5 guys for that you want to save for those events, I completely understand that because those are the biggest events with the biggest purses of the year. And if you can hit a winner in those, you're most definitely going to cash in. But that doesn't mean you need to devolve into using the worst guy in the field to try to get sneaky with people. No, you can go to an event and look at the top 5 in odds. There's always one guy that no one's betting. The odds are correct. The win equity is correct. It's just that's not a bet that people want to make. That's not the DraftKings play that people want to make. So that's usually your best opportunity to gain leverage on a field in the one and done. Someone with a very high win probability, with a very good win rate, that is just not being used by the vast majority of people that week. Because if they win, not only do you get the huge upside in terms of the payday, which you need to win one of these tournaments, no one else is getting that along at the same time. And presumably, if they're using studs, that means you can use those studs at different events throughout the course of the season. So just being a little bit contrarian without taking bad players is really the major tip to one and done. And don't worry about burning a lot of these top guys. As we see as the year kind of trickles along, that guys emerge throughout the course of the season. The best players in January aren't necessarily the best players when it comes to August or July, especially in that mid-tier where Harris English can be great for 3 months and he doesn't do anything for 3 months. And Chris Kirk pops up, or Cameron Tringali pops up, or Billy Horschel is the greatest example of this when he won the Tour Championship, that all of a sudden halfway through the year, Billy Horschel's like a top 10 player from that point. Like for the final 3 months, he's like a top 10 player on the PGA Tour. No one would have thought that going into the season, but that's just the way that the season evolved. So you always have people towards the end of the year that just you wouldn't even consider it if you were trying to map out the season. So you don't necessarily need to cling on to the very high-end names all season just to use them at the BMW Championship or the first leg of the FedEx Cup playoffs. So that would be my major tip to everyone out there is don't try to outsmart yourself in terms of the one and done. Maybe if you get way behind halfway through the season, just because you're, let's say, in last place through 3 weeks of the season, I mean, it's not a good start. It's not the optimal start, obviously, because there's going to be someone who hits 2 winners in the first 3 weeks. It's like, oh my God, how am I ever going to catch them? There's plenty of time. There's like 6 months of this season to go. All you need to do is, you need to hit back-to-back winners or find 2 winners in 3 weeks somewhere along the line. But that will get you back up to where you need to be. And the worst thing you can do is be like, oh man, I need to use... Let's just use an example here. Oh, I need to use Aaron Rai this week at this tournament because no one else is going to use him. Maybe you get the luckiest of lucky circumstances and you end up winning with Aaron Rai. Maybe. But that's probably a less than 1 in 100 chance that happens at any tournament this year. So what's really the point of doing that when you can still climb your way back up? Now, if you get to July and you're $5 million out of it, yeah, you need to start rolling the dice and gambling on people that no one else has because you put yourself into this position where you need to dig up to get out of this hole and take Hail Mary shots every single time. But for the first few months of the season, you need to tread water. You need to be within striking distance and not get yourself too far out of it. Obviously, you want to be in the lead, but that's just not going to be the particular circumstance that everyone else is going to find themselves in. Don't bury yourself by making bad picks just because you feel desperate. There's still plenty of time and there's plenty of ways to come back up, and using these quote unquote contrarian lower owned high end plays is a much better path to finding a win. Like the best one that I had last year was Patrick Reed at the Farmers Insurance Open. I just looked at the odds. He was inside the top 10. No one wanted to use Patrick Reed that week. Oh, the course is too long for him. Well, what happened? He chipped and putted his way to a victory. I was one of a few people in the one and done who actually had him. That was like the high point of my year. It all went downhill after that because I felt like, oh, now I'm riding a heater. I'm going to take Carlos Ortiz at this event where he's, not even in the top 30 of odds, because I got a hunch this week. And maybe your hunches are better than my hunches. I don't know. I'm just telling you the straight up way to play this is try to use as many good players in the highest leverage spots as possible, and that will get you up at the top of the list. The worst thing you can do is get to August and there's only 4 events left, and you still have like 8 of the top 12 players in the world that you just haven't used for whatever reason. Like, that's absolutely moronic. You want to deploy the best players in the world on your team, at least at some point during the year. And if you don't use them up early, you might find yourself in a circumstance where you don't get to use them towards the end of the year. So those would be you can always go courses for horses, which guys who have great course histories and you can really kind of see which courses really breathe that out. The Wyndham Championship, Colonial, the Heritage. Maybe you want to go with a course horse guy for those ones. But generally speaking, that's a great narrative to fade in a lot of these circumstances, and it allows you to be a little bit different and to cash in on when you win. You're not going to win the giant ones with only 3 winners throughout the course of the year. You're going to need 8, 9, 10. That's just the variance that needs to swing your way when you're competing against 4,500 other people. Now, if you're in the $1,000 one and done, like I am with 49 different people, the overall winning score is going to be a whole lot lower than when you have 4,000 people into the mix. So maybe your strategy turns out to be a little bit different in those processes as well. I've been working through this every single year. It's about my 10th year of playing one and done right now, and the strategy always remains the same. The hardest thing to do is sticking to that strategy and knowing that some years not going to be your year, but some years are going to be your year, and you want to be in the best position to cash in when that's the deal. So go to fantasygolfchampionships.com, go play in the one and done. It's a whole lot of fun too. If you're not someone who bets big every week, or you don't even want to bet that week, the one and done still gives you some skin in the game, something to root for over the course of the 4 days at a pretty low cost. Like $125 for one entry in the race for the Mayo Cup comes up to like $375 a week. And it gives you a rooting interest from January throughout August. It's a very good investment for entertainment purposes only, with the upside of having the ability to cash in huge if you do end up with great picks. And this is your year, and you get lucky this year and follow the rules that you set in place for yourself. Everyone's strategy is going to be different. This is what I'm hoping is a strategy that I can stick to for more than 3 weeks. It's like a diet. Everyone's good with a diet for like the first week. What about week 5 of the diet? Can you still stick to it then? And that's really the hard part about one and done, is even when it's not working in your favor, these are isolated events. Sometimes you're just going to make bad picks. It's going to happen to everyone. The people who win this every single year, you go look at their picks, they're not great every single week. They just happen to have the right variance on their side. They hit winners when their guys are in contention, and boom, they skyrocket to the very top of the list. So don't beat yourself up. Let's play for first place. Let's play for winners, and that's how we're going to do it. FantasyGolfChampionships.com to go play in the giant one and done right now. Check back before the Masters, because there'll be a brand new one opening, and there are private leagues as well. If you don't want to play high stakes, or you want to play for $5 or $100 with 10 of your friends, you can go do that at FantasyGolfChampionships.com right now if you want to. Anyway, smash the like for the episode, sub to Mayo Media Network. Obviously, we have golf shows running every Sunday through Monday on Mayo Media Network and on the Pat Mayo Experience audio podcast feed. In the description, tell me some maybe tips that I didn't go over here that other people can learn from you, that you've had a lot of success with in the past. Thank you all for watching. I'm Pat Mayo. I'll see you next time.
Pat Mayo Experience! Experience!